What's going on, everyone? I'm Alex, and that's Eileen, and you're watching It's Lights Out F1. And today we're going to be talking about the Turkey Grand Prix. And did it really live up to its expectations? What do you think, Eileen?
No. Something I like to say is I don't like to overpromise and underdeliver. And that is the slogan of the weekend.
But
we got a little something, but it wasn't very exciting. I mean, even qualifying was more exciting.
Honestly, if you were a Ferrari fan, I think you were kind of sitting at the edge of your seats a little bit, hoping that he wasn't gonna be able to hold out and finish that race with one set of tires, but he got past there at the end.
Charles. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. But honestly, let's just start from the beginning of the weekend. Yes. It was a good weekend. We had a new livery from Red Bull, and honestly, I liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was different, because someone said it. They said, I think actually Max that said it. He's like, yeah, honestly, our traditional colors the car never really changes. It's always the same, and
yeah,
that's true. It always kind of looks the same, and a lot of cars have kind of had some nice differences, and then we've had a couple new teams, this year with new colors, and it really shows, oh man, that looks good.
Well, it was a tribute to Japan, to Honda Racing.
It was.
So it was supposed to be unveiled at the Suzuka race.
Which was supposed to be this weekend.
Yeah. So it was cool. So they got white racing suits, which I'm not a huge fan of white racing suits, but they looked really clean on them. So I don't know if it's just because they were brand new, but I'm sure they get new racing suits every weekend. But I feel
they
like
do, and they get multiple ones throughout the weekend too. So
yeah.
Maybe they got new material and it looks better.
I don't know. They look crispy.
So what the issue was before, Eileen had a problem with, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the older suits that Mercedes wore in the 2018, 2019, I think it was, were white. And whenever they got done, they were really quite dirty or sweated out, and you could see like their butt imprints.
Well, it's not just Mercedes. This year at the Imola race, when George and Valtteri crashed, when George got out and went to fight
that's true.
Valtteri, there was a stain on the butt, and I'm like, oh my God, I hate the white suits because they stain so easily. I don't know, but I think Alfa Romeo and then Williams, they look a little dingier, but the white suits, even after the race today, I was like, damn, Max's suit is still real crispy considering they're in the rain. So, they're in the conditions, but I don't know, it looked good. They also got new headshots, so
yeah.
Red Bull got a lot of newness this weekend.
Yeah, I like Max's headshot. Sergio's, they kind of, I don't know, I didn't like it so much.
Max's headshot was good. Sergio, it looked like he was in the sunlight because he was kind of squinting, but then his hair was, not the greatest photo of him.
Yeah. So that's kind of the start of the weekend. We had a new car livery. That was kind of it, kind of coming in and out of the practices.
There was a lot of speculation about Lewis getting a new engine.
There was, and
he said no.
That's right. In press conferences, he said no, and then it's come to figure out by end of day Friday that he was definitely taking a new engine.
Yeah, taking a new ice.
So that kind of happened. So that was the start of the week. So he took that 10-place grid penalty, and then we also had a couple other people take some engine penalties too. We had Daniel take a engine penalty, and we also had Carlos take an engine penalty.
Well, Carlos was going into the weekend, so we knew that on Thursday that he was taking the engine penalty.
Yes,
so he was starting from the back. But I think because qualifying was so bad for Ricardo, they were like, let's just do it because he qualified P15. So it's kind of the perfect situation for him to do it this weekend.
So speaking of qualifying, honestly, it was wet but drying.
Yeah, it was interesting. So free practice 3 was kind of a mess, very wet. But then qualifying was drying out. And so I think they started on intermediates, right? And then everybody went to slicks.
That's correct.
But it was like slick. Like it was wet. Everybody was going off in turn one.
Yeah, it was kind of progressing at the end, and if you were able to have enough gas, because some people ran out of gas, and they were able to get probably a better run right at the end there.
Yeah, it was good qualifying though. I mean, it definitely got better conditions as the time went on. So the lap times were getting better and better. So
They were.
and it was Lewis on top. I think every qualifying one. Q2, Q3. So
Yeah, so Lewis
record.
Yeah, did his job, set the lap record, and really couldn't do any better to qualify, and then still take that penalty, and then come have to start in 11th. So I think he really performed well.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I feel like both Mercedes looked really good all weekend.
Yep.
Like the Red Bulls were kind of struggling. Like I think free practice 2, Perez out-qualified Max, which was super weird to see. Yeah. But they came back, obviously from that and performed well. Max did really good in Q3 and qualifying just in general. So, but yeah, it was your generic 1, 2, 3. Lewis, Bottas, Verstappen.
Yeah, but with that grid penalty, there was some humor involved because, so normally the pole setter has to sign the tire that Pirelli has all the pole setter sign. And we got to see a nice interaction between his teammate Valtteri and him and Hamilton with that.
Well, and Max. Duh.
Yeah, well, Max commented
at
too.
the press conference. That was the best part. That was the best moment of the weekend.
But I think they found the tire because the tire was really somewhere. It hadn't gotten lost yet.
Yeah, because Lewis doesn't know where the tires go. Which, to be quite frank, like, what do they do with that many pole position awards? Like, so he has 101,
right?
Because this one didn't count, even though he did sign it. It was 102 because. Let's be real, like, he got pole position.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And, but, like, where do you put all those? Like, you see, like, Valtteri has, I think, 18 now, technically. And, he's got enough that he can put them in the room. And I'm like, I think Charles has 8. And so there's the meme online that's like, Charles has 8, Lance has 1. And it's, like, their little headshots. And then it's Lewis with just, like, a whole, like, boatload of tires in the background. You sent that to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it is interesting. He's like, I don't even know where these go. But, yeah, he found out at the press conference that he technically didn't get the pole position, recorded.
He had lost it.
So Valtteri was like, oh, my God, it's my best pole ever.
Yeah, so that kind of set the front of the grid. But before we move on, I want to talk a little bit still about qualifying, and I want to talk about Schumacher a little bit. He got into Q2, which... he did it once before, but when he did it by wrecking his car and red flagging the session of Q3. So It kind of kept him in that position to go on to Q2, but then he wasn't even able to come out. So this was his first true Q2. That's pretty exciting.
It was. Yeah. I mean, he's driving a garbage truck. So, the worst car on the grid, and he got into Q2. So pretty damn impressive.
It is.
Yeah. Pretty cool. He was very happy. And he actually performed pretty well in Q2 too, actually. So he had his highest starting position, I think, of P14 this weekend. So
yeah.
Because Carlos, I think, went
really.
out, but basically was just giving Charles a tow.
It was all about the tow. And you told me, you pointed it out. I didn't notice the tow, but it kind of screwed Daniel.
It did. Yeah.
And so you think... Tell me more. Do you think that...
Well, so what I was thinking, and pretty much like what it was, is the battle between McLaren and Ferrari is very close. And Ferrari was looking good this weekend. Carlos knew he was taking the grid penalty. So historically, what you always see is you don't even see them come out and really risk it, especially if there's, conditions that are poor. You don't want to damage your car. So
right.
The reason he went out is to give Charles the tow. But for me, I'm like, strategy-wise, it would make sense for him to go out and have to bump. He basically bumped Ricciardo out just on a non-flying lap. So it worked in the team advantage too.
because they're in the championship.
Because they're battling very close. So, I mean, then Ricardo took the engine penalty, but I don't know. I think that could have part of it. I can't talk. That could have been part of the reason they did it, but I mean, I think the reason really was for Charles, but it made sense. So,
yeah.
And it helped them. But I mean, I think McLaren's still in the lead, not by much, but I mean, the way Ferrari's been performing the last few races, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with those two teams. So, but yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's move on to the race. So we know that Lewis had to go and start P11, and so that put Valtteri and Max on the front row with Leclerc and it was
Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, P4.
And then it was Alonso, and it was Alonso's highest qualifying position since like 2014 or 2016. I don't remember, but there's a lot of hype around Alonso being on the podium today, which, would have been interesting. But
would have. So, at the start of the race, really, he turned one, and Alonso kind of spun out.
Wow. He got a little nudge.
Oh, you're right. He ended up getting hit.
So pretty much, turn one.
He got squeezed because he went wide, but not quite wide enough.
He went wide, but then Perez was on the other side of Gasly.
Yeah.
So Gasly was basically sandwiched in between the two.
Right.
And then he bumped into Alonso, which I don't think should have given him a penalty on turn one. Like, I don't know.
On the first lap, I think that's a racing incident.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't intentional. He didn't do anything wrong other than there was somebody super tight on the left-hand side and somebody on the right-hand side. So where is he supposed to go? But
right.
Basically, Alonso did a 360. And then I think it took him down to like P17 or something really bad.
P16, I think it was.
It was pretty tough. So that was under investigation, and then
the very next lap.
Yeah, the very next lap, Alonso did it to Mick.
Yep.
Which there was a really good moment after, like during the interviews, where he came up and he apologized and gave him a hug. I mean, I don't think it was intentional.
Definitely not. Both incidences weren't intentional.
Yeah, but to be consistent, they both got penalties. They both got 5-second penalties that they served at their pit stop. So Pierre had really good race pace and probably would have been in front of some other racers at the end of the race if he didn't have that.
He would have been 5 seconds closer for sure up the road.
Yeah.
So that incurred a couple penalties that they had to serve during their pit stops, which honestly, not everyone needed to take pit stops in this race.
The controversy of the hour.
So
stay out or go in.
Yeah, that's really the biggest thing. We had some good battle with Sergio and Hamilton. That was a good battle. That was probably the highlight of the race.
It was. Hamilton was on the charge. There was some good defense, even from Yuki. I was like, wow, the youngest rookie on the track, holding him up for several laps. He did a really good job. So that was impressive to see. But Lewis, of course, was on his way, and I'm like, finally, he got up to Perez, and he was getting ready to overtake him. And it was like 4 or 5 laps where he was within a second and just like couldn't get it. And then finally they came up and it was like 4 corners where they were wheel to wheel, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So, good driving.
It was good driving, and they gave each other enough room. And I
mean, Perez got pushed into the like pit lane or whatever, but I don't know. Like, I think they were so close that it was like, who has the racing line?
It's slightly wet.
Yeah,
tires are kind of worn. I thought it was fair. There was no even investigation, I don't even think, at all.
Yeah, nobody brought it up, and I feel like ultimately Perez came out in front, but it might have been different if Lewis did. I'm sure Christian Horner would have got on the phone and been like, "Yo, what's up? Like, can we take a look at that?"
Yeah, well, that didn't happen, so I can't say. You can't say that type of thing.
But that was definitely the highlight. That was the best racing we saw. Now, a lot of what we did watch was Lewis overtaking and on the charge to the front. We didn't see a whole lot. There wasn't a lot at the front. Like, even Max was like, it was boring. I had to try to stay awake. So, I mean, it wasn't a whole lot of excitement other than Carlos coming from the back and being on the charge and then Lewis being on the charge. So, I'm like, but yeah, right after that, everybody started to do their pit stops. I think Bottas was first. No, Max was first. And then Bottas reacted.
Yep.
And then Perez came in on the next lap. And so it was just like, oh, Lewis will probably come in.
So then that put Leclerc right in first place.
Uh-huh.
And this was starting to get to a weird point in time in the race where some of the guys like Lewis.
It was like 43 laps or 40. It was something crazy.
So, I mean, you're talking 43 laps on a one set of tires.
Out of 58 laps.
And there's talking about possibly going the full length. And you got some of the best drivers that can handle going the distance on a rough set of tires, like Lewis, you know, and you see Leclerc even saying he wanted to do it, and he was trying to do it. But once you saw him hit that wall, those tires fell off really quick. I mean, quick.
Well, I mean, I don't remember how far ahead he was when Valtteri came back out, but it was a good, like, 8 seconds, and then it was, like, slowly closing. But he had the lockup in turn 1.
Yep.
And then Valtteri just had the pace. So, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, so then once Valtteri got past Leclerc, there was no reason to keep staying out, I guess. Because he was probably going to just continue to get past. So Leclerc.
Well, that was after.
I know.
Let's not leave out the fact that Leclerc was like, at this pace, to his engineer, at this pace, where is this going to leave us position wise? Because he's still in the lead at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 2 seconds, but his pace wasn't as good. So he's like, where are we going to end up at if I keep this pace to the end of the race with these tires? And his engineer just was like, well, if you keep Bottas behind you, P1. And I remember looking at you and being like,
that's not what.
Well, duh.
Yeah. That definitely wasn't what he asked.
No, not at all. So.
Leclerc asked, at this pace, where will I end up? And honestly, if they could have took a moment, maybe they don't have the same type of guys that are at Mercedes that are doing all the stats.
I'm sure they do.
Running all the algorithms. You're right. I'm sure they do. But they didn't utilize whoever is in charge of running down all these stats, plugging these numbers into a computer real quick, because it is just a bunch of numbers that you just need to plug out real quick, and you could figure it out.
Yeah.
They could have said, okay, yeah, in this pace.
You'll be P4 or whatever.
Yes. You hear it all the time on every other team.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the top teams, I'll say. So maybe that's the difference between the top tier and the middle tier. You know. Well,
irregardless, it was very funny. And
it was.
I think everybody was like, wait, what? I'm confused. So it was pretty entertaining. But no, so also during that pit stop time, there was a lot of other drivers that were coming in. I feel like we tend to focus on the top, but Vettel came in and went out on mediums, which we were all like, even the announcers were like, wait, I think I need to do a double take. Is he on mediums?
A little bit earlier in the race, there was a radio conversation between him and his team, and they asked, do you think the track will dry out? And Vettel said, yeah, he thinks the track will dry out. So I think they were kind of gambling.
Well, I mean, ultimately, like even Jenson Button was like, well, I mean, it's partially the driver's decision too, ultimately. So yeah, he came out on mediums. Immediately wasn't good. It was not the right decision. He was like, it's not working. So I think he was out for 1 lap, very slow. Like they even were like, this is dangerous how slow he's having to go because it's just not the right conditions. And even on like when he was coming back into the pit lane, I think had a little spin out. So definitely a gamble. But I think everybody kind of was thinking like, what direction do you go? Because everyone's intermediates kind of turned into slicks. So
yeah,
you know.
So,
but yes, it was kind of crazy to see.
So Lewis kind of felt like he was going to be able to make it on those tires.
Yeah. So basically, once Leclerc pitted, he was on the podium. He was in P3. So it was Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, and it was like lap 46 or 47, and they're like box, and he's like, why? And I think thinking like Lewis, it's like, okay, there's 58 laps in the race. Last year, he went 50 laps on the same set of tires. And it was like super impressive. You know, he boxed on lap 8. So we have to remember that in retrospect. He's done a lot with tire management.
He's one of the best.
I mean, he finished the race on 3 wheels. So let's just remember that. But
yeah, that he did last year in Silverstone.
But So I think for him, he's like, okay, I have the pace. I'm keeping up. I'm whatever. Like, why would I come in? So he didn't come in. So then another lap after that. Then they're like, okay, well, like, what are you thinking? And, he just basically, like, same kind of thing as last week, I guess, conceded at some point.
I think he
to the team's
trusted
decision.
the team,
Yeah, and it was lap 50. Or 52. God, it's hard to keep up. But it was like there was only a few laps left, and he came in, got a new set, and came back out right in front of Gasly. So it was P5. And then the tires were struggling.
Yeah, because he kind of had to push him a little bit to stay in front of Gasly, and so that kind of blistered him up a little bit.
I think they were just graining.
And
they were, going. So same thing happened to Charles, and so Charles lost P3 because it was super easy for Perez to overtake, and so he fell back.
Perez is one of the best with his tires too. He's known.
Well, he also pitted at the right time. It should have been Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Lewis. But Lewis was like, I don't want to come in because I'm in P3. I can do this.
And honestly, in retrospect, I think he probably could have done it. Now that we know that, so talking about this tire, these couple of guys were staying out, and we find out that Ocon
stayed out the entire 58 laps on the same tires.
One set of tires, which is impressive
impressive, but also dangerous. So, like, I guess when you think about it, because now I'm like, of course it would have been so cool to see Lewis go 58 laps and like end up on the podium or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking logically, with the risk and the gamble of does his tire blow, and then he doesn't get any points.
And that's and the team gambled on that, but so we see that Ocon did make it to the end. And there's some photos of his tire.
Yeah, everyone's joking online that he put his own initial in the wheel because there's just a huge circle O on the right front. And he even says himself at the end in post-race, they're like, congratulations, he got 1 point for going the entire 58 laps, which 1 point, I mean, it's a point. But he's like, I think a couple more turns and the tire would have blown.
Probably right.
Which is crazy. So it's hard to say. Like, of course, everyone online is like, oh, Mercedes screwed Lewis and, this and the strategy and whatever.
Honestly, I don't think they screwed him. I think, he probably could have done it for sure and probably finished P3 or P4, right around there. But he played it safe, finished P5. So really, didn't lose a whole lot of points. So now, in the grand scheme of things, he's only down a couple points. He would have been down 1 point.
He would have been down 1 point.
And if he would have somehow miraculously been able to have fastest lap, they could have tied or something.
Well, they weren't banking on that, but they were saying, like, okay, if he finishes P3 and Max is P2, then they'll go into the next race with 1 point differential. Yeah, Max would still take the lead, but...
So right now it's only, 6 points?
Now it's 6 points going into the next race, yes. But, he was pretty frustrated, and...
So we're going to the next race, and the next race is here in the U.S.
Woo!
And lately, the last few years that they've been able to go here, honestly, last year in 2020, they didn't go to Austin because of COVID. And so you didn't actually really ever get to see any of these races live.
I watched, I think, the first U.S. one that I watched, I want to say it was 2019 when Vettel, something happens with his car. Both the Ferraris have really bad races.
Yeah.
And something breaks, I think, on Vettel's car at that race. I think it was 2019.
But traditionally, Lewis does really, really well here. He has been doing really well here for a while.
Yeah.
So I would suggest anyone to watch the 2015 Circuit of Americas, the U.S. race, because that, my opinion, is the best. It is a wet race, and one of Lewis's master classes in his wet race, which he does a lot. Watched him today go from P11 to P5. Pretty good. We watched a couple other guys today who... F1's racer of the day was...
Carlos
Carlos and he did good. He went from the back of the pack, which was P20, and he finished.
I don't even
Let's look what he finished. I forget too.
P9.
So P9.
I think he was P9 because it was, or it might have been 7.
Oh, P8.
Oh my God, we're terrible.
Yeah. So he got P8, which
that was. I mean, it was good. It wasn't, I think, as easy of a track as last week to overtake.
No.
And then just given the circumstances from last week, there was a lot of shuffling at the end because people didn't pit. So totally different circumstances from last week, but
yeah.
Carlos was driver of the day. So
okay, so F1's driver of the day was Carlos. Who was your driver of the day?
Didn't I already say? I was Checo.
You might have, but I just want to get it confirmed. So Checo, yeah, I agree. I'm gonna say driver of the day was definitely Checo.
I mean, come on.
Battled
the
really
defense?
well. Yeah, defense, and
he played the team card very well. Ended up on the podium. Raced well. Had good pace.
Yep.
Great defense.
Max owes him some tequila.
Yes. So Max owes him a couple tequila shots.
Yeah.
Rightfully earned.
So, anything else about today's race that you want to talk about?
I feel like there was something. I don't know. Well, this was the first race I feel like everybody finished in a long time.
All 20 racers.
20 racers, so
You're
that
right.
was great to see.
You're right.
I don't know. I mean, we're excited that next week we don't have to wake up at like 4 a.m. to watch free practice. Not next week, 2 weeks, the next race. That's what I meant. But, yeah, no, it's going to be cool. I wish we could go to the race, but unfortunately, we didn't buy tickets like as soon as they dropped, and they sell out immediately. So next year.
They did sell out immediately, and we weren't sure if we were going to make it. We don't really live very close to Austin, Texas. It's definitely a decent trip to get there. So we're going to try for next year for sure, and we also have another race in Miami for next year. So there's a couple more options for us here in America.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But next in 2 weeks' time, we have Austin, the Circuit of America. I'm hoping for a little bit of a wet race again because Texas has been getting some rain lately.
It's literally, I just said this today. It has been raining. First of all, it's been raining like more than it normally would this time of year. But also the 2021 F1 season is sponsored by rain. Like, this is the most rain we've seen. And even the drivers are saying it, feel like it's raining a lot. So
yeah.
I would be okay if it was not a rainy race.
I thought last year had a lot of rain, and there was a couple of good rainy races, but this season has been more. The first half of this part of the season, it was a little drier, where there wasn't a whole lot.
Well, because we were in the desert.
But man, these last few, but we're getting near the end here. Only, I think it's 6 races left. Yep, I think it was today was the 7th, so today I think we have 6 races left, and it's going down to the wire. Even the drivers or the Constructors Cup is actually kind of close.
It's 36 points, I think.
Yeah,
to
that's
be
not
exact. But I mean, a lot can happen.
A lot can happen, but so those 2 top teams, they made their engine moves, so they served their engine penalties for their guys.
Not Checo yet.
Yeah, we'll see about Checo.
So not Checo, but we do know that Valtteri has multiple engines since he took 2 engine penalties back to back.
Yep.
So he's good.
He's definitely good. I know now Lewis with this new engine, he'll be good too. He'll make it to the end.
Yeah.
Checo, you're right. We'll see,
I'm sure he'll need something.
Maybe.
So, but yeah, it's definitely going down to the wire.
It is.
It's going to be, I'm going to need a Xanax in Abu Dhabi if it goes down to that. So,
and it probably, from what I can see, it's going down to the last race, and that's incredible because normally Abu Dhabi for these last few years have been boring because the championship has already been won by Lewis.
Yeah, exactly.
in weeks before.
And Mercedes wins the Constructors' Cup before Lewis wins the championship. So it's it's exciting. I think the biggest takeaway from me this weekend was it was great to see the drivers interact in the press conference. That was my favorite moment. And I think that the fans blow their rivalry out of proportion sometimes. And I think that they respect each other a lot. And I think it was, for me, I guess I'll leave it on. My last thing was I have been waiting for Bottas to win all season. And I was so happy for him to get the win. And he looked great all weekend.
He did.
Great. The whole race, barely, I think he made like one tiny lockup in turn one because everybody did. But no, he rightfully earned. My God.
Yeah, well earned.
Give the man P1.
Just to sum it all up, my biggest takeaway this weekend was how poor McLaren was. Yeah, I'm a little bummed out. That's my team. They did okay. Just
Norris
not great.
Was P7.
Not great though.
Yeah.
They struggled. I think with a lot of things on this weekend. This was not their weekend. So I'm hoping for next week them to kind of show up here at the Circuit Americas.
They will.
Yes. So that's all we got.
Yes.
We'll see you in 2 weeks after the Austin race here in the U.S. We're excited.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone watching. And if you guys want to comment on anything, go ahead. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.